All right, good morning, guys. It is Tuesday morning, 5:43 a.m., and unfortunately, there is no good news this morning for Florida. Now, a lot of people, when they watch these videos, you're in different places. I'm in South Florida. I'm in Broward County. So my perspective, of course, is Southeast Florida, but I'm thinking about everybody across the state from Key West through Marathon, Key Largo, all the way up into Palm Beaches, of course Miami-Dade, Broward and Miami-Dade, we're together. And then on the West Coast from Naples, Marco Island, all the way up through Fort Myers and into Tampa Bay, where I have family who are evacuating or have evacuated. I haven't heard from them recently, but let's get right into it. I don't want to waste anybody's time this morning, except let me just remind you that if you like the videos, please click the like button, subscribe, and get the notifications, and please share these with your friends. And if it's hard to remember the YouTube link, you can find the videos also at craigsetzer.com. All right, let's get right into it. First off, there is the eye showing up very, very clearly now on the Key West radar. And by the way, there's the latest advisory that's scrolling there at the bottom of the screen. But you can see it is moving to the north. Now, what we're going to be watching today is this gradual turn to the northeast that it's going to be making over the next 24 to 36 hours. And so we're going to be kind of like tracking it and then drawing points so we can track it like minute by minute now. It's no longer where we have to wait for the reconnaissance or we're looking at the satellite. We can track it very, very closely. So, excuse me, it's early. So that's one of the things we're going to be watching very, very closely here. Now, this has implications for us today in South Florida and the Keys in terms of rainfall. The rainfall threat is huge. It also has implications for us in terms of the possibility of tornadoes. And let me show you that, because there is a center, it's called, from the National Weather Service, called Storm Prediction Center. And the Storm Prediction Center issues watches for tornadoes and severe thunderstorms. And so the Storm Prediction Center has put out this what we call a convective outlook, which is basically where is the severe weather expected to be. And you can see all of Florida down there is in that yellow area, Central and South Florida, for the possibility of tornadoes in some of these squalls that are going to be coming through. So we're going to be mindful of that now during the day today and through tonight and through tomorrow. Are there going to be some stronger squalls and some tornadoes? And we might have to get to an interior room of our houses quickly, because as we learned in Irma, these storms, these tornadoes that are rotating with the squalls that are rotating around the center of a tropical storm or a hurricane can be moving quite quickly. So that's one thing now to keep in the back of our minds today. There is the what's called the excessive rainfall outlook. This is through Friday here, and you can see the entire peninsula. The entire peninsula is in a moderate risk for significant flash flooding, so severe flooding. And the rainfall forecast specifically looks like that now. This is the latest one issued just an hour ago, 4:24 a.m., and it's valid through Sunday. You can see that the track there, the heaviest rain is based on the track from Ian, and you can see there is now a 20-inch rainfall amount for Pinellas County in Tampa Bay there, and 15 to 20 inches across parts of west central Florida up to the north. So that's Hillsborough as well as Pasco and Hernando, not quite up to Citrus, it looks like. And then there's that strip there that stretches across the state, and that goes just to the north of Orlando, so that would include Ocala, on up to Daytona, and that is the 10 to 15 inch rain amount. We are relatively lower here, but we're going to get a lot of rain, 4 to 6 inches, but don't be surprised if a few spots get some 10-inch amounts. In fact, you can see they've got a little area of orange there in that 10-inch range. So all things we're considering here, this is all part of our hazards. So that was the tornado risk, also the flood risk. Now we're going to talk about the wind risk and the surge risk as we go forward here. So let's zoom on in. There is a contributing to the rain risk. There is the heavier rains now that are coming up through the Keys. And this is going to go on. If you haven't been through a hurricane, this is the way it goes when they approach you from this direction, from south to north, and that we get these squalls like this that kind of keep radiating through, and they become more intense, stronger winds with the squalls. The rain piles up really quickly, even though the raindrops are very small. And so this is all a consideration as we go forward here is that the wind is going to come up in these squalls. There's going to be a possibility of tornadoes in these squalls, and there's going to be flooding from these squalls as well. There's the lightning on there. You can see that little squall there coming up to the south, especially in the Upper Keys, had some lightning this morning. In Tampa Bay area right now, still just a little bit of light rain here or there, not that bad yet, so that's good. Last minute preparations should be rushed to completion today in Tampa Bay, across the entire west coast of Florida. Your time is running out. Unfortunately, I think this is going to be and I use this word extremely rarely because I hate to say something is historic before it has occurred, because it hasn't made history yet, but it has the potential to be a historic hurricane event for Florida, especially the west coast. And this could be a generational event, a once-in-a-lifetime event. And unfortunately, it might be occurring with us with this storm Ian here. All right, so let's talk about the satellite there. You can see the eye became visible last night. The eye is still visible. The center right there, pushing across the western province of Cuba there, Pinar del Rio. That part of Cuba is fairly flat. There's not mountains. There are some hills to the east of there, to the west of Havana, but nothing that would really disrupt the circulation or the storm. And the eye staying visible now that it's over land is an indication that it's strong and continuing to strengthen as it goes here. So let's zoom in. Now, one of the things we're going to be doing here is plotting the hurricane center's positions here in the short term. So this is the 12-hour forecast. The center is expected to be right about there at 2 p.m. this afternoon with the 140-mile-an-hour winds around the center. So the strongest winds there, right in that core area, right there. They don't extend out too far, thankfully, but the winds decrease as you go out, but there's still hurricane force winds a fair distance out. In fact, I should have looked and I didn't, but we'll get this for the next one. The extent of the hurricane force winds. You know, I think I can do it real quickly here because I know where to look. So I'm looking at, and I'll just show you guys can watch too. So I'm looking at the advisory here. So this is what's called the forecast advisory. It used to be called the marine advisory, and it's got the points of where the storm is. It's got all the watches and the warnings as well. And if you zoom down here, we've got the eye diameter there, 25 miles. So that's a medium-sized eye. 10 miles, 15 miles, that's kind of small. And 25 miles, that's medium-sized. It could be because there's a little bit of land interaction now going on, that the eye has spread out a little bit. But that's not that surprising kind of in this evolution where we are here. So here are the hurricane force wind radii. This is this line. It says 64 knots, and it says that the hurricane winds extend out 30 miles to the northeast, 25 miles to the southeast, 20 miles to the southwest, and 20 miles to the northwest. So good to know there on the radii how far the winds stick out, because the storm, of course, isn't that point. It's the extent of the winds that extend out from that point. But if the winds are about 30, 35 miles out, maybe even 40 miles, because the storm's going to be expanding a bit as it gets to the north, then that's kind of this area that we're going to see the most destructive winds. So let's go forward here and talk about, this is kind of our analysis part of my discussion here, and then when we go forward here, we'll talk more about the forecast part of the discussion. So this is kind of just getting a feel for what's going on with the storm, and let me just show you here, because this is now looking at the radar, and the radar also we can track the center there very, very specifically. So we're going to be checking in quite frequently here. Is that center staying on the line there? That's the forecast line. Now it's due north on that first forecast point. And are there any deviations at all that are to the right of that line? I know there's a lot of talk on Twitter about, is it coming east? Is it coming east? I kind of tend to think in terms of its track, and is it coming to the right of its track? That would be a more northeast direction. Now there's that word east in there, but that doesn't mean, and when people say to me, is it coming east? When I hear the word east, I think, like that, is it going east? No, it's not going east. It's going north, but it's going to turn to the northeast. So I know there's some semantics involved there, right? The models overnight, they didn't change much at all. In fact, now they are tightening up, especially on some of our solutions here. There's the European solution, and you can see it is right to the right of the National Hurricane Center's track there. So what we start thinking here, we're getting into this time frame here now where our uncertainty is shrinking, because the model possibilities, while they're still there, they're shrinking. Now, it has been the range of possibilities, the level of uncertainty with this storm has been insanely high. It really has. 5 days out, you expect it. 4 days out, you still kind of get it. The windshield wiper effect where it's going back and forth. 3 days out, you're usually starting to settle in. And 2 days out, you don't want the models shifting hardly at all. All the models should be in good agreement. We still continue to see this battle. And I'll show you in just a second. It's, I think, two things going on. It's one, the forecast of the trough that the models are predicting, this dip in the jet stream. And two, it's the forecast of the storm interaction with the trough. So the models are having to get two things, not the usual one thing, just how is the storm being influenced by the steering currents, but two things where it's getting the thing that's going to influence the steering and the storm, how it reacts to the steering. So it's been very, very high model uncertainty. So that's the European there, and then here is the GFS solution, and you can see it still has a lot of uncertainty for this time frame here. I mean, we're looking at basically 24 hours here, and look at the branch out of all the model members there. The ensemble envelope just opens up right away. So our uncertainty is medium, which is better than low down there, and our uncertainty is high. We're fairly uncertain when we get up there. Is it going to suddenly veer to the left or to the right? I don't think so, because a lot of this is getting baked in the cake. This is probably an outlier. That's probably an outlier there. The Hurricane Center's cone, you can see, is pretty much on top of the blue line. And if I can, let me zoom in here because there's some detail in there that I don't want to miss. So that blue line there, that's the ensemble mean. That did very well last year with hurricanes. And then the red line there underneath, that's the GFS run. So if you look online and you say, where's the GFS? That's the GFS run. All right, so here's this jet stream dip. There's the blocking highs. The jet stream dip is sitting there. And so what happens here is we have two things going on. First off, this high has been in control, and this high has been steering Ian to the west, and now Ian is rounding the backside of that high, the western extent of that high there. But Ian, the high has been kind of chiseled away by the jet stream dip there. So that jet stream dip not only has chiseled away that high, but it's also giving a little bit of forcing now to the east as well, in terms of it's going to start pushing on Ian as Ian gets closer to it. That push is good and bad. The bad part about the push is that what's going to happen is Ian's fairly round right now, but it's going to become very lopsided, and we're on the east side of it, so we are going to get all of the rain and the winds and stuff as Ian gets very lopsided. The good news is it's going to help weaken Ian, but unfortunately it's also going to kind of turn it towards Florida. So it's, I mean, I don't know how to paint that in a better way. All right, so here is 8 a.m. this morning. Let's go forward here into time. Here is 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, and you can see that dip in the jet stream. Let's go forward into time. There is 8 a.m. on Thursday, and you can see what's happening here. The jet stream dip is moving on out, so now our steering winds are becoming very light, and the high pressure system is trying to build back in over top of Ian, and that's why the forecast is for very slow motion here as we approach the Tampa Bay area. All right, let's get to the advisory here and talk about what's going on with that. Okay, so this is the 5 a.m. advisory. Winds 125 miles an hour, Category 3, moving to the north, and it's moving due north basically at 12 miles an hour. That forward motion is expected to slow down starting later today and tomorrow, which means that all of the effects that we're feeling are going to kind of get drawn out here across the state. They will obviously increase across the west coast of Florida, but they will kind of persist from South Florida and then decrease also into Central Florida. Pressure 952 millibars is getting down pretty low now as it moves to the north, and I think there was a, let me check real quickly here because I think there was another distance location. Well, it's on the bottom there. The other, I think we're using two distance points here, so 175 miles south-southwest of the Dry Tortugas, which is to the west of Key West. On my cones here, I show you both the cone itself, which everybody says, are we in the cone or are we out of the cone? And I show you the extent of the storm, because remember, the cone tracks a point, but the storm is not a point. The storm is large, and so I track the storm there. You'll see the cone here, it'll spread out, but we're tracking the storm. We're looking at the tropical storm conditions in yellow, and we're looking at the hurricane conditions in red. So let's go forward into time here, and our times are a little bit off, but in terms of my stop points here, but that's okay. So here is the 2 p.m. this afternoon time frame, and then let's go a little bit farther forward, and there is the 2 a.m. tonight. That is slowing down, so that is not a lot of distance here. Closest approach is going to be this evening for the Keys, and tonight for South Florida. So gradually today in the Keys, the winds are already up. I've seen wind reports coming in as we've gone through the morning here. Some include east-northeast at 40, so that's Augusta 40, so that's tropical storm gusts, and these are some of our lights, our reef lights that are in the Keys that have weather instrumentation showing those wind gusts. So once again, there is the 2 p.m. this afternoon, that's 2 a.m. tonight, and closest approach is overnight tonight. So the winds will build throughout the day in South Florida, squalls will become more frequent, and by later today and tonight and tomorrow, it's going to be very windy across South Florida. Remember, what we're concerned about are the tropical storm conditions. That's where we start to see more widespread power outages, and the hurricane conditions, that's where we start to see destructive effects from the winds. So by later this evening and overnight, the tropical storm conditions are into the lower and into the middle Keys now. A tropical storm warning is in effect for the middle Keys, and you can see across the west coast of Florida here as well. And I'm going to do a timing graphic in just a second to really break down when the tropical storm conditions arrive. There is the 2 a.m. once again position, or that's the 2 p.m. rather for Wednesday, so that's Wednesday afternoon. Category 3 is the forecast. You can see the hurricane conditions coming on shore there. And here's the point about the cone. There's the cone right there, and you can see that the storm extends well outside of the cone. So if you're in Fort Myers or Cape Coral, oh good, the cone is shifting away from us. The only reason the cone is shifting away from you is because as the storm gets closer, the cone gets smaller. The storm's not getting smaller, the impacts aren't getting smaller, the cone is getting smaller. Why? Because the cone is based on where the center of the storm, that point, the point is expected to be 2/3 of the time. So, I mean, it's great for tracking a point. It's not great for tracking a storm. And you can see kind of the extent of the tropical storm winds. They make it up into the middle Keys as well. All right, going forward here. So there is 2 p.m. on Thursday. Our time frame there, this is a little bit slower from the previous advisory as well. We pointed there, unfortunately, is right on top of Tampa Bay. Could it go farther to the south? Absolutely. In fact, if you're in this red area here, I would say there's a chance it could even be farther south down there towards Manatee, Sarasota, on down into Lee County. So Fort Myers, I would shut her up. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if, I think there's a hurricane watch there. I'll double check on that. We'll see that in a second here. But I would be preparing for possible hurricane force winds. Also, the thing is that on the south side and the east side of the storm, it's typically you have more severe impacts. We also call it the dirty side of the storm, and practically the whole state is on the dirty side of the storm in this case. All right, then there is our Thursday afternoon position. So very slow motion here, slowing down Wednesday, Thursday, and then finally Friday, it's on up and out. You can see the red extending over there. So there is the chance for hurricane conditions over there on the northeast coast, over here on the northeast coast, I should say, Daytona Beach, and also right through Orlando, and as far north as Cedar Key, and even tropical storm conditions extending back to Tallahassee. There's kind of the overall picture of it there. And you can see the outline of the cone there, and you can see what the storm really looks like. And so the cone's really not a good tool. It shows 5 days where the storm's going to go, 4 days, but in terms of predicting who's going to feel it. And look at that, South Florida here, we are still kind of in this area. We're right on the edge of tropical storm winds. In fact, tropical storm warnings have been issued inland. Let's show you that. So our watches, so those are the tropical storm watches. So basically, right over the Everglades of Miami-Dade and Broward, now under a tropical storm watch. All of Palm Beach County under a tropical storm watch. Tropical storm warnings now for the middle Keys, the lower Keys, upper Keys, not under a tropical storm watch or warning at this time. All of Southwest Florida under the the tropical storm warning right up through Lake Okeechobee, tropical storm warning up to the east coast, so Martin and St. Lucie counties, as well as Indian River County under tropical storm warnings. Here's the hurricane warning, so yeah, so it does include Fort Myers. So the hurricane warning basically from Pinellas and Hillsborough down through Manatee and Sarasota into Lee County there, and Fort Myers, Sarasota, Tampa Bay, all of Tampa Bay. I don't have to call out your city to say that if you're in this red area here, if you're not in a storm surge evacuation zone, you should have shutters up, and you have a window of opportunity this morning to quickly get it done. Hurricane watches have been extended eastward there through much of central Florida. Looks like Polk County, as well as DeSoto and Hardee County, and then up to the north as well. Hurricane watches in effect, basically Pasco County and kind of to the north there. Tropical storm watches all the way over to the east coast there. So the storm surge warnings, there's storm surge watch continues in effect for the Keys, 2 to 4 feet is possible. Storm surge warning for all of the west coast here, all of this area could see over 4 feet of storm surge over normally dry land. And depending on exactly where the storm goes, that is going to focus where the most significant storm surge is, but all of that area has that potential. In terms of breaking down the timing, this is 4 p.m. today. Tropical storm conditions are into the lower Keys, into southwest Florida there, and into the Tampa Bay area by tonight. So once again, this brief moment of time here that you have to get things ready on the west coast of Florida here in the hurricane warning area, I would rush it to completion. You are running out of time, and you're going to start having to deal with wind squalls and things like that as we go forward here. So I intended for that to be kind of a brief update on what's going on. I think I went a little bit long here. We're now into the 6 o'clock hour. Any quick questions from anybody before we, let me just put up the radar one more time, that thing that we were tracking there. Before I sign off this morning, be on 105.9 this morning with Paul Castronova. Let's see. So good morning. We're ready to go, right? Looking good. Do schools, or should they have been closed in South Florida today? Surprised they're still up on Palm Beach. You know, that's a little bit outside of my lane here because I'm mostly, meteorology and preparedness. Schools typically will close when they are needed for shelters. So what happens is that when we need to shelter people because of hurricane conditions, then we typically close the schools and they become shelters. It's kind of an area there where do the schools stay open in bad conditions? I think in tropical storm warnings, they probably should be closed, but there are no tropical storm warnings for Miami-Dade or Broward. Now, is it going to be bad here? Mm-hmm. Everybody's going to say, wow, it's bad. Is it going to be as bad as Irma? I don't think that bad. 2017 Irma, it was a long, very strong tropical storm / minimal hurricane, which it's kind of hard to tell the differences between tropical storm and hurricane when it's very strong tropical storm. But those were the effects in southeast Florida. The Keys, of course, bore the brunt of Irma, as well as the southwest coast, Naples and Marco Island had the direct impacts of a major hurricane. So in terms of schools, that's kind of more up to the local officials. So everybody's saying about the schools, thumbs up. So, okay, so that's it for now. I'll be back this morning about 10. We'll probably do 10:45, 10:40, 10:45. Be sure to share with your friends, of course. Be sure to like if you like what's going on, because apparently, and I didn't realize this, I thought I would just get on here and you would see me. Apparently, when you like, it elevates this video so that more people can see it, and we're all about sharing information and keeping everybody safe, right? All right, so we'll see you back this morning around 10:45.